think we go ahead and get started. The first few minutes is just introduction and background information. We've got what I think is going to be a really good topic this evening, really useful and valuable information. So we're excited to have some new contributors on, some new partners on. As we start, I usually go over a few, disclaimers and just background information because, we do get frequent regular participants, but we'd like to have new names and new faces come on here. So, appreciate everybody hopping on at whatever time it might be across the time zones. Like I said, the idea here, this is the retirement separation social hour. We used to call it the virtual happy hour, and, we're continuing to mature and progress the program. So, but the intent here is to have a laid back, casual conversation of like-minded individuals that have, common interests, common experiences, and facing common challenges, and build a network where we not only have these monthly calls, but we record them. We have them on our YouTube channel. We have a Discord server where people can continue, to conversate throughout the month and ask questions. So if anything's covered tonight and you don't feel like you got the answers you're looking for, you just want to have a private conversation, particularly with the presenters tonight, we will exchange contact information, and there's lots of ways to keep the conversation going beyond the hour long, and a lot of times we end up staying on and just chatting for a little while afterwards. So when we do hit the hour, we'll take a pause and, politely say, hey, if anyone's got to drop, no hard feelings. Or if you're like Brandon and you got to shuttle kids to soccer practice halfway through, feel free to drop. But again, it's meant to be a, casual discussion with some informative subjects that we can all utilize. I've got my IDP background on, and IDP, has started this and resourced this up to this point. But I want to make very clear, this is not for IDP's benefit. It's not business development. It's not recruiting. It's really for us, the veteran community, the veteran network to help each other out. The idea is veterans helping veterans. Anybody that's at the far left, just drop your Appendix J, you're considering retiring, or people that have been out for years, sharing stories and experiences and resources, to help each other out. It is recorded. I already mentioned that once, but I want to say that again. So it is recorded. We're using Read AI to record, and then we'll post this to our YouTube channel. That's also great because, like I said, it's challenging for individuals to hop on at different times across different time zones, but anybody can go back and view these and check back in later. And we do frequently get views, it's on YouTube, so we monitor our views in between calls, and we do have individuals that are going out that didn't make the call and looking back. So just keep that in mind, that this is being recorded. It will be put on our LinkedIn, it'll be put on our YouTube channel, and then we also have the Discord server for communication in between. Abigail, was there any other admin remarks or anything else that we need to cover up front? Did I miss anything?
No, sir. I think you covered it.
All right. Thank you. Abigail is the brains, the muscle, the executor behind all of this. I'm just the voice pretty much. So thanks, Abigail, for all the hard work you do putting these together and getting our presenters and everything every day. And that's why I always check in with her because she keeps me in line to make sure I don't forget anything. So thanks, Abigail. All right, so there's some other things that I want to cover up front, and then I'll turn it over to our guests to allow them to introduce themselves. So Jimmy and Lance, thanks for being patient. Appreciate it. But before we get going too far, I did mention that IDP has resourced this, and we used to call it the virtual happy hour. We've recently been calling it the retirement and separation social hour. But I would like to announce tonight, and some of you have kind of heard this, as of yesterday, we have now formally and officially stood up a nonprofit entity, and we're going to call it Project Strive. Abigail, what's Strive stand for, the acronym? I know it, but I want you to say it.
Supporting transitioning. Oh my gosh, this is so terrible.
I'll put you on the spot. It's all good.
It's new. I apologize.
Supporting transition, integration, and veteran engagement. So it's a mouthful.
Absolutely.
Project Strive.
It is. Yeah, that's right.
So thanks to Abigail and Angela and Paul's hard work, we're fully registered with an EIN nonprofit entity, and we got our letter from the IRS yesterday. We qualified for 501c tax exemption. So what that does for this is it just opens up the network. We'll be better resourced, and we're going to go out and get a nonprofit board, and we're going to start making this more formal. It also allows us to increase our network because, like I said, we normally get a lot of Marines, a lot of Marine Corps financial managers. We've got Charlie on representing the Army tonight. We have had other individuals from other services, but we really want to increase our network and our reach. So with that 501c status, we'll now be able to get on base, get into some places where we couldn't get as a for-profit organization. We'll be able to do more good work. So, congratulations and thank you, Abigail, Angela, and Paul for the hard work you did. And for everybody that's participating, we'll be launching a website, a new website, new backgrounds and everything. So for Project Strive, so look for that in the future. So the December call will really be the last call that we'll call the Retirement Separation Social Hour. It's going to be more of a, look back at what we did over the year. And I really encourage you to come back in December. If you have anybody else that you think would want to participate, because what we're really going to look for is a review of the topics. What can we do going forward to make this better? Kind of treat the December call almost as a focus group to make sure we're covering the material that's useful. And we're going to invite as many of our collaborators and partners back as we can. And so it'll be like a focus group holiday theme, just a fun time before we all break for the rest of the holidays. I have one other big piece of news to share. It's a personal note, but today I had the honor and privilege of administering the oath of enlistment to my eldest son, James Philip Pertell Jr. So today he raised his right hand and he took the oath of enlistment at the Cleveland MEPS. So I just wanted to, share that with everybody. It was quite an experience, quite an honor. So he's awesome. Continuing the Marine legacy for the Pertell family. So, I gotta say I was a little caught off guard. I didn't anticipate that they would give me the opportunity to administer the oath. So there I was standing with my beard, telling him to raise his right hand, but it went well. So, just a celebratory moment for us and our family. So thanks for allowing me the opportunity to share that. All right. Does anybody have any questions regarding the format, the content delivery, or anything else, surrounding the delivery platform here, and the way forward? Because if not, we'll get to the good part where I introduce our guest speakers and our presenters, and then we'll have a discussion afterwards. So anybody have anything? Abigail, one more check with you. Anything else we need to cover up front?
No, I think that we covered everything.
All right, awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, like I said, now to the good part. I'm not going to do a long introduction because Lance and Jimmy are very capable of introducing themselves and their company and what they do, and share a little bit about their military background. But we're really privileged and excited to have them on. I think the topic of the evening and the focus of their company is very relevant to a lot of us. So the company is Rights to Records, and they specialize in FOIA and Privacy Act, and helping veterans and other individuals get access to critical records. And as many of our discussions have highlighted across the past few months, a lot of what we do in this transition, this separation process, a lot of us struggle with records. Individuals that have been out for extended periods of time maybe also struggle getting access to information and records. And that's your story, right? So you want to make sure that it's accurate. So Jimmy and Lance are going to share a little bit about what they offer and some stories and some things that they've done in the past. So again, we're really excited to have them both on. So I'm going to let them talk about the company, talk about themselves, and I'll turn it over to you guys now. So thanks, guys, for being on. Over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. I guess I'll do my intro first. So my name's Lance Johnson, Florida native. I enlisted in the Marine Corps in 2006. I spent 11 plus years as enlisted, 3451 financial management resource analyst. Then in 2014, I applied and was accepted to the MECEP commissioning program, somewhat thanks to Jim Pertell. And a few years later, in 2017, graduated from the University of Tampa, got my bachelor's in accounting, and I also commissioned as a second lieutenant. From there, I went to some basic officer training. I got my new occupation as a manpower officer, 0102, also known as adjutant. I did this for about 7 years, dealing with all things administration, for manpower, records management, security management, and probably most notably legal administration as a command legal officer. And then in July 2024, I exited the Marine Corps after serving 18 years, just short of retirement. And we'll revisit my early departure later on in the brief. But prior to separating, I thought I would do something HR related in the private sector. So I went out and got my SHRM Senior Certified Professional certification. But I ended up not needing it, and I got hired on with MCCS Camp Pendleton, Finance Division. Been working there for about a year now, and notably spending a lot of the free time with Jimmy, trying to get Rights to Record operational.
I'll introduce myself. My proper name is James McCune. I go by Jimmy or Jim. I grew up in New York City. I was commissioned as a Marine officer through the NRTC program out of the College of the Holy Cross in 2005. I was a communications officer for about 7 years. Then I picked up a program where the Marine Corps sent me to law school. I spent the rest of my Marine Corps career bouncing around between, for a short time, being a prosecutor, spending about 6 years as a defense attorney. And the balance of that time, I served as an agency counsel. And that is when the Department of Defense or the Department of Navy gets sued in a personnel matter. I represented the Department of Navy in federal courts. And in that, I specialized in something called the Administrative Procedures Act. So that is after going to BCNR, a former service member can sue the Department of the Navy. And I also represented the Department of the Navy in FOIA lawsuits. I also represented or administered the Department of the Navy's FOIA program, and hence came this kind of genesis to this Rights to Records organization. I currently am a FOIA practitioner for the government also. So thank you very much.
Yeah. And then are we able to get the slide deck pulled up or?
Yeah, well, we've got a second here. There was one other important announcement. I wanted to say, and after a long time of trying to make it happen, IDP was able to onboard Brandon Charles last week. So he's now officially an IDP employee. So Brandon, welcome to the team and thanks for hopping on.
Thanks, Jim. I appreciate it. Glad to be here.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, Lance, back to you, man. Thanks.
I'm ready to do it. Well, about to come up is just, here goes our company, Rights to Record, our fancy slogan, truth is our mission, one record at a time. And then if you could go to the next slide. So before we kick things off, I just wanted to ensure everyone's a little familiar with two important laws Jim already mentioned. So when you think about records, they exist for virtually everything. Everyone has a record trail that has followed you through your entire life. And these records that are collected by the government, stored and maintained across various databases, systems of records. And when they're aggregated, these records form their own narrative of your life, which essentially becomes your official story. And sometimes the story is not accurate. And I would think that everybody here, ideally, you'd want your story to be told correctly. So that's where the powerful tool of Privacy Act comes into play. And aside from the technical definition shown on the slide deck, put simply is, Privacy Act, it gives you the right to see what the government knows about you and provides a means to correct it. And just quickly shifting gears to the government, who knows everything about you, they have their own paper trail that tells their story of how they operate and how they make decisions. And if you've been following current events at all, you'll likely notice that the government, it prefers to keep their story private and their business discreet. And this is where FOIA comes into play. And put simply, it's your legal right to ask the government for documents. So that's essentially what Rights to Records does. Leveraging Privacy Act and FOIA is basically the foundation of our services. And we try to help you with using these tools to access information and correct individual records. Next slide. So here's our stated, here's our stated mission at Rights to Records. We bring the discipline of more than 45 years of combined federal and local government experience and the precision of legal professionals to the pursuit of transparency and justice. We navigate the FOIA, Privacy Act, and military legal system with integrity and purpose, empowering our clients to access the truth, defend their rights, and correct their record with honor. And next slide. So just before we dive into Rights to Records and all the services that we can provide, I just want to share a quick personal testimony that I feel is relevant to the topic. And it also kind of speaks to how Rights to Record was started. So as I mentioned earlier, I separated from the Marine Corps around my 18-year mark. And as you may have suspected by now, it wasn't voluntary. In July of 2024, I was involuntarily separated for misconduct. And I don't mean to be vague or secretive or anything like that. So if anyone's curious, I'm more than happy to share the specifics offline. But for now, we'll just leave it at misconduct. So the allegations against me, they met the basis for mandatory separation, meaning my case will be heard by the appropriate decision authority within this, decide whether or not I would remain in service. And at 16 and a half years, I was formally notified of these allegations and referred to a board of inquiry. A board of inquiry is essentially a trial. The big difference is there's no judge, there's no jury, and rather it's a panel of 3 senior military members who hear your case and they vote on the decision. So while leading up to the board, I experienced a lot of fallout, right away. My promotion to the rank of captain was withheld. I would have otherwise promoted 2 months after I had been notified of the allegations. I was relieved from my billet as the installation adjutant, and I was repositioned at the squadron level as the S1 officer in charge, and ironically, the command legal officer. So I was pretty upset at this moment. And I prepared like a madman. I went all in. I ended up hiring a private attorney with a ton of experience in military law, retired Navy 06 JAG, which is not cheap. And then me and my lawyer, from there, we addressed every possible angle for my defense, polygraph, which I passed, character statements, witness statements, pretty much everything I could think of. But you can't always control everything. And despite having a very experienced attorney, I still ran into a lot of issues, namely within the discovery process, which is done prior to trial, where they decide on what evidence will be admissible during the hearings. And to this day, I can only speculate on why they made the decisions the way they did, but the service refused to release several pertinent pieces of evidence that were critical to my defense. And while I did everything to fight it, ultimately my efforts were unsuccessful. And one of the biggest problems was the same individuals who were working to separate me were also the ones who got to decide what evidence would be admissible. So it was a challenge. So my defense of the BOI was not as strong as it otherwise could have been. And fast forward to the Board of Inquiry date, where I attempted to present my partial defense. The members unanimously voted to separate me. And about 4 months later, I was out of the Marine Corps, exactly at my 18-year mark on 31 July 2024. But shit happens. And I wasn't gonna allow myself to be a victim. So I poured all of my energy into my appeal. And yet I knew I still needed those documents from the evidence that was withheld. So while still on active duty, I leveraged the Freedom of Information Act with my requests escalating all the way up to the service's highest level of appeal authority. And still no luck. The records that were completely withheld, I continued to get arbitrary justifications and in many cases, improper FOIA exemptions. And for the files that were partially released with the redactions, it was basically like reading the Epstein files, all marked up with the CIA's black marker. And probably the most egregious was just the mandated FOIA response timelines were completely disregarded at every level to include the highest level of appeals. And this is where I believe everything happens for a reason. My attorney referred me to a FOIA litigation expert, someone who had someone she had a strong working relationship with, a former Marine Corps JAG, a guy by the name of Jimmy on the call tonight. So while still on active duty and with the assistance from Jimmy, I filed a lawsuit in the Southern District of California against the Navy for violating FOIA law. And I did this while on active duty, I'd like to mention, without any blowback or retaliation, because I get that question a lot. And just to wrap things up, I was successful in my litigation. I got nearly all the documents I had originally sought, and I even received additional documents. Because of the unusual handling of my evidence requests, I decided to include email traffic in my FOIA requests, specifically from individuals that were involved in the decision-making process with the evidence. And sure enough, lo and behold, within the emails that were released, it showed that key members within the process were purposely obstructing my ability to access evidence I had a right to obtain. So after I was successful in gathering all these documents, I was able to include all these items in my discharge appeal to the Naval Discharge Review Board. And while the results are still pending, I have no doubt that this will help my case and ultimately, hopefully, lead to a pathway for retirement, pension, maybe even recovery of lost wages for my time lost in active duty. And I know we got a lot of finance and numbers people here, so just to quantify everything, assuming that I'll live to the age of 80, that's roughly $4 million in lifetime earnings at stake, which is a lot. But apart from the money, there are other things at stake that I hold near and dear, such as my reputation, my peace of mind, and ultimately being able to remove the stigma of how I left the Corps. So that's my story. Now we can go to the next slide. So what we do and who we do it for. As already mentioned, FOIA and Privacy Act are the foundation of our services, but they also feed into various other follow-on services that we do. And we like to say we can do it all for you. And although our primary clients will likely be military and federal employees, our services extend to anyone with a need for Privacy Act and FOIA expertise. And Jimmy, I don't know if you wanted to add anything.
Sure. Just on a brief note, I'm having a little hard time seeing the slides. Is anybody else just getting a white background in gold by any chance?
I am, but I was just going to go back since the call's recorded
Okay.
and watch it.
I'm going to go ahead and Abigail, maybe for the short term, would you mind if I present the slides if it's not working on your end, or if it's not coming up? Is that all right? Or can you want to give it a shot?
Yeah, please, because I checked it earlier on my laptop, but I'm on my Mac and I could see it on my laptop. So if you could, that would be amazing.
Great.
Yeah,
Great.
thanks. That'd be great.
I'm sorry, I'm not an expert on Google Meet.
So it's the share screen is it's next to the smiley face. It's got an arrow on it. It's like a screen with an arrow. So when you use the 3 dots earlier, just move to the left.
Okay, if we can just hold on, if everybody can bear with me just for a quick second here.
Yep. So
Okay.
here we go. Now we can see it clear.
Great. So first, thank you very much. What Lance really discussed there was the ability for the FOIA to gain access to information that may be opaque to us, may not be able to know. So in Lance's situation, it was kind of a one and all judge, jury, and executioner. Those that were making the decisions on the merits of his situation were also the facts of the situation. We're also holding the rules of what the procedure was. So Lance was able to leverage the FOIA in order to get information that should have been produced to him at the Board of Inquiry, evidence that was key to exonerate him, but also to see how the sausage was made behind that process. And was able to see biases in what occurred. And that's some of the power of what the FOIA can do. And that is gaining access to things like emails, Microsoft Teams messages, other correspondence that may be about you that you may not have knowledge of. So the FOIA allows an individual and the public to gain access to understanding how the government operates. And in that case, if one is interested in about themselves, those again are emails, Teams messages, on the things in that nature. Additionally, for those that are in the business world, the FOIA allows access to information that helps level the playing field in the government contracting world. I've personally dealt with multi-million-dollar, billion-dollar corporations. I recently had a FOIA litigation with Meta, and then down to relatively small organizations. And that allows business organizations to gain access to things like bid, contracting information, matrices, names, and things like that. And then additionally, the Privacy Act, that's a story about you. And those are things that is your record. And I think we're all familiar with the importance of our OMPFs being tight, having correct fitness reports, things of that nature. And I think most service members know of the boards of corrections for records, BCNR, BCMR. However, and how those boards can serve to correct your records. And I think we're accustomed to going to BCNR under certain circumstances. But the Privacy Act allows for amendment of one's records for factual inadequacies, factual errors. So that could be an error in a fitness report. That could be an error in an investigation. That could be an award that was inappropriately given to, was not given to inappropriately. And we'll get to it, but what I also have seen quite a bit, and Lance and others have seen, is those who have had brushes with the military justice system, who then get indexed or titled in the National Criminal Information Center, and the ability to correct that. So what we do and who we serve, we will specialize, and we do specialize in FOIA and Privacy Act requests, appeals, and that's an administrative requirement to go to the department that owns those records before litigating. Litigation support, Lance mentioned that. That is suing the government, which there is no stigma behind that, to get those records. And in fact, your fees and the cost of your attorney is recoverable under the FOIA. Record correction and amendments is what we discussed briefly there with the Privacy Act. The requirement to get your records quickly is expedited processing, things we assist with, and fee waivers. The FOIA and the Privacy Act is free. However, what I have seen and what we've seen is commands and agencies attempting to use fees as a hurdle. We have follow-on support in military justice and legal administration work. And then for businesses, aside from getting the records you seek, submitter notices and reverse FOIAs, which we can explain later on. And generally, our clients really can run from anybody from on active duty who really wants to see what was going on. For example, hey, I was nominated for a COM and I got a NAM. I want to know what were the emails, what were the notes from that awards board. I want to get information about a promotion board, how it went. Journalists, advocates, business stakeholders, and anybody who is seeking transparency. So Lance, if you feel comfortable, would you be okay for advancing to the next slide here?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so how do we leverage the Privacy Act and the FOIA? Lance, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, and I think you're controlling the slide deck, Jimmy.
Sure, yeah.
So
you, go ahead.
Yeah, just for Privacy Act, essentially the different ways you can use Privacy Act is requesting your own records. And then once you have them, you can identify discrepancies. And then you can request for corrections and amendments, which can be very valuable and useful in gaining insight into things like VA records and ratings, medical board determinations for yourself. And as Jimmy mentioned, even indexing into, with regards to criminal investigations and, stemming from law enforcement, entering into databases.
So if I can give it just a quick example there, this is about 7-8 years ago, represented a former sailor who was on I think it was a Kennedy, but it was the aircraft carrier out of Yokosuka. There was a drug ring on the ship, and he was suspected of taking drugs, and he was questioned by NCIS. Never was charged with anything, no NJP Article 15, separated on his own accord from the Navy with an honorable, standard separation. I went to go visit his dad in a prison in California. And as he's walking through the door, they say, yeah, you've got an arrest on your record for drugs, and we don't let you in. And this guy said, what are you talking about? They said, yeah, when you were in the Navy, you were arrested for drug possession and intent to distribute. And he said, well, the Navy doesn't, Department of Defense doesn't arrest people. They said, no, it doesn't. So he had to go and do a Privacy Act amendment. He had to correct his record to have that arrest taken off. What we really see, though, is after the unfortunate, if people can remember back in 2017, the Baptist Church in Texas, the Sutherland Springs shooting, was an Air Force veteran who had been court-martialed and received the BCD for domestic violence conviction. It's a federal act called the Lautenberg Amendment, which says if you've been convicted for domestic violence, you can't own a firearm. That service member, that airman, was not entered into the NCIC. And as one who's been around the military for long enough, anybody knows there's that natural kickback. So what has happened is really any brush with the legal world and the military has resulted in many, many service members being titled or indexed in the National Criminal Information Center, and getting those records, fixing those records are ways to leverage the Privacy Act. Now, Lance, if nothing else to add, I can advance here.
Yep, I'm good. Can you go forward 2 slides, Jimmy?
Sure.
Hey, Jimmy, I'm not sure if you shared entire screen or just the screen, but if you're changing slides, we're not seeing the slides change. You might want to cancel the share and then reshare and share his presentation or share the entire screen.
Got it.
On your computer, you're seeing in advance. We still see the what we do and who we serve slide.
Okay.
See, all of us in the Department of Defense, we spend so much time on Microsoft Teams when you throw
Yeah.
or something else out. It causes all kind of confusion. Apologize for that.
Okay. If everybody can just bear with me for a quick one here.
Yep.
Okay. Are we seeing the slide that has
Nope, now you need to reshare, and then it should ask you.
There you go.
okay, all right.
Yep. Okay.
Excellent. Thank you very much for your patience.
Yeah. Thanks for
Yeah.
working your way through the technology.
No, backup plan.
Yeah, so here's we just went over Privacy Act, and now we're with FOIA. So here are some listed items that you can gain access to, and I think the big thing to draw attention to is the end states, right? FOIA helps you understand the decision, identify any biases, unfairness, failure to comply with orders and regulations, and things of that nature. And I know, Jimmy, you wanted to address a few things here.
Sure. So for the service member, the veteran, for an example such as an award, a promotion, or a fitness report that went into a, let's say a fitness report that was maybe not what one wanted. It's gaining access to something like an email from your former reporting senior, your former reviewing officer, and then the Marine Corps. And it's gaining access to some insight that, kind of gave you that velvet dagger that's out there, or the fitness report that you didn't think where it was, or where you were on a profile or a Christmas tree. For an award, something similar. It's gaining that deliberative material, the advice. It's other things that can go and show that an order, a direction, a regulation was not followed, to find that bias and that unfairness, to then go to a correction to get your records done. And additionally, if it's one that is interested in transparency or interested in writing or journalism or history or really anything to gain that's out there, getting access to emails, other records like that is something that's extremely common under the FOIA and is really relatively easy to do and something that we're here to assist with. I'm going to advance the next slide here. Now, understood that this meeting is titled Separation Retirement, and we are seeing the slide that says FOIA for Business. Is that correct?
No, you're still stuck.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know why exactly it's when I advance it here. I'm just going to go this way here. For the business owner, what the FOIA can do is gain access to what is listed on the right-hand side of this table here, and the end state, at least in my layman and not as a business owner understanding, is gaining access to these types of information in order to further what's on the left. So the FOIA is open to gaining information that is done in the bidding process, the contracting process, and the back and forth. The FOIA generally does not allow for access into confidential information that's in the commercial process of business contracting with the government. However, it is very, very open, and it allows for a more even playing field for the business that is involved, and that is regardless of size, regardless of overall capitalization, and it's something that for the business owner it can be capitalized and is used quite often. Lance, do you have anything else that you'd like to add?
No, you got it.
Okay. I guess we are a rights, our name of our firm is Rights to Records, and we do specialize in the FOIA, the Privacy Act. However, we do offer secondary follow-on services. And the example that I have given to others is the company that makes car engines for Mercedes-Benz. They don't get an order and say, just make a car engine and just go ahead and do it. To know what the end state of your FOIA request or Privacy Act amendment or correction is key in shaping that underlying request, shaping that administrative appeal if it's required, shaping the litigation, and then ensuring that you have a good product of evidence going into these boards. And we can then provide those wraparound services that are generally veteran focused. However, the Civilian Merit Status Protection Board is something we do and specialize in, business submitted notice and reverse FOIAs, and then state FOIAs. One thing that I've seen in my other capacity is that many investigations are state originated or incorporate military or federal investigations. However, gaining records through a state FOIA or a state sunshine law access is generally much quicker and easier. So it is a service that we provide.
We can go to the next one. I got nothing to add.
Okay.
Yeah. So for choosing rights to records, you have all these things listed, but I would just say, ultimately, we have the experience, we can speak the language, and we know firsthand where to look and how to navigate the system. But I think most importantly, we've both kind of been in the position where we've had we've been at the fire of the government. And so I think some of this that we're doing, we have a lot of passion for. It's personal. And for that reason, I think that, we are a good solution to tackling any problem related to Privacy Act and FOIA. I don't know if you want to add anything.
I'll go back and just, yes, having, been on the other side of the V from the government for a long time, even though working for the government, the FOIA is really a sword that can be used to really level the playing field. I've used the FOIA in murder cases to gain access to records. And I've seen, indigent requesters really gain access to records that otherwise just wouldn't be there. And honestly, this is what I do. This is what I wake up thinking about, and this is what I'm interested in. So you bring a lot of skill from Lance, knowing the legal and administrative side, and then my knowledge of having done this and having seen it from both sides of the coin. But I'll advance to the next slide here, Lance, if that's okay with you.
Yep. Yeah. So why not just use AI, right? Because that's kind of the answer for everything. You think taxes, you think everything. You can kind of punch it to AI, and you can get you the 80% solution. Aside from not trusting Sam Altman, AI can only get you a partial solution. It'll answer the science to, a FOIA request, to a expedited processing, fee waiver, but it lacks in the art, it lacks in citing case law, it lacks in many areas that you need kind of a little bit of TLC added to the request. And so we thought it would be helpful to add a couple of samples. And Jimmy, I know you want to kind of point out the differences.
So just as one concrete, one tangible example, in a FOIA request, a agency can attempt to assess fees. And what I have seen is as a tool as obstruction. We don't really want to do this FOIA request. It's going to be complicated for us. So we're going to tell you we want to charge you fees. And it's going to take us X number of hours. And the person that's going to do it, it's going to cost X number of dollars. So it's going to, I'll pick a ballpark number. It's going to cost $1,000 to do this FOIA. And here's your fee. On the initial request, you can request a fee waiver. So this is what I put in. I said, ChatGPT, can you please review the following regulations and do a fee waiver request for a request to Marine Forces Reserve, and we wanted to seek emails. And this is what we got out from ChatGPT. So aside from not using artificial intelligence, because if you invested in NVIDIA, I guess you thought you had a heart attack yesterday, and you don't want to necessarily destroy the environment with the power intake. ChatGPT does a decent job, right? It lays out the very kind of what we would call black letter law and regulation here. Okay, you're an other requester. I want to understand the operations of the government and give public knowledge, and there's no commercial interest. Great. And that if you're happy with that, let's use ChatGPT. However, this is what we have submitted for a fee waiver request. And we don't necessarily have to go extremely in depth. But as you can see here, for example, did ChatGPT, was it able to know that, Marine Forces Reserve only charges for the search, not for the review of records? Now, it didn't know that. Okay. Did it catch that, for example, the nature of shedding light on the public interest and is able to cite case law? No. And is it able to catch the 2 hours of free? No, it wasn't. So this is the type of product that you're getting from rights to records, and in the example of a fee waiver request. We're estimating this is a case of 19 email addresses being searched, and in which just the names of these Marines had to be typed into a search feature at the Marine Corps Cyber Operations Group. What could have been, and what I saw with the attorney that Lance worked with, somebody they tried to assess $2,500 for a similar email request. And here, we laid out the law and the regulation to say, basically we estimate to be this 45 minutes of time, and this is what we agree to. You get 2 hours for free. So as compared to artificial intelligence, yes, it does do an okay job. But what we can provide to you is both the science of where the regulation is, where the law is, and the art, the able to tailor to your specific needs and situation. So that's all I have there, and I'll go to the last one here.
Here's our contact info. We got the website up and running. You'll see social media coming soon. We're working on it. I see my sister-in-law on the call, and she's been great with helping us out with some of these items. Thank you, Risa. But here's our phone number, our email, our website. If you want to check it out, kind of goes in more depth. Jimmy's been awesome with typing out a lot of different blogs on different subjects on the website for anybody interested in the topics. And I know if you do, some of you may have questions that might be a little more personal, so you have our information. Jimmy, you said you're open to.
Yep. So, I think Jim, mentioned about staying on the call. We're happy to stay on the call as long as one would like this evening. Understood that some of these issues may be more appropriate in a smaller setting. So this evening, if anybody would like to do a phone call or a Zoom, we can go ahead and set that up immediately. Feel free to speak to us in this meeting. What we would do is in a Zoom, if you were to email the FOIA lawyer's email address, we would send you the Zoom link. Or if you want to do it by phone, we could patch in on a three-way call, or we could do it in general. As mentioned in the earlier part of the brief, we do a free 45-minute consultation. And in that consultation, ultimately, if you choose not to go with us, we're happy to point you in the right directions of how to gain your records. And again, that goes from items like your OMPF, your medical records, to gaining, and under the Privacy Act, to gaining emails, other deliberative information under the FOIA, to items for a business. So that's all I have for the moment. But that phone number is reachable by both voice call and text, and the email and the website are both monitored at all times.
So
Yeah, no, thanks, gentlemen. That was like a great presentation. Appreciate what you guys are doing. Appreciate the information you brought on. We'll definitely would love to have you guys back and continue to have you added to our list of partners and collaborators, because I think the information is useful in a lot of ways. You know, if not personally to those of us on the call, but you know, Lance, really appreciate you sharing your story, and we all know, you know, Marines that have, or soldiers or sailors, and we all know service members potentially that didn't get what some would consider a fair deal, right? And a resource like this, so whether it's not us personally, you know, being able to at least now have something in our Rolodex to help, you know, other individuals out, that's going to be extremely useful in the future. So, but I did want to go back to a couple things. You know, Lance, you really appreciate you sharing your story. And, you know, money isn't the end all be all, but it is a factor that we all take into consideration. And, you know, you throwing out there that by being separated 18 years before you retired, you know, you said $4 million is at stake on the outcome of this appeal. And I'm really glad to hear that your appeal is back open. And, you know, it looks like, you know, things may work for you, though. And like you cited, a lot of those personal reasons, your reputation, your peace of mind, you know, integrity, your service and all that. A little bit of a different case than like a legal battle, right? One of the most common things that we've seen over the last couple months in individuals that participate, and I encourage a lot of individuals to continue to pursue that, either an increase in VA rating or individuals that separate and have no VA rating. And I cite to them the same, like the monetary compensation over the course of the next few years, and even the potential for back pay or anything like that. I mean, if nothing else motivates you, hopefully money does a little bit, right? So, but I'm throwing that out there as an example to ask if you guys have any experiences or any examples, because a lot of individuals are just intimidated by the idea that, like, okay, I've been out for a while, and I don't even know where to start by getting my OMPF or getting my medical records. And another thing that individuals are afraid of is individuals that maybe currently have a 50% and they're like, I don't want to reopen that because what if they take things away, you know? So I know it's kind of two separate questions there, but do you guys have any experience or any knowledge to share related to either one of those topics?
Sure, I'll jump on the access to records. You know, that's something that you know, the basic access to your own records, particularly OMPF, is something that we're happy to do pro bono and walks anyone through. Access to one's medical records generally is going to be the same. We're happy to do that pro bono. What becomes a little more challenging is possibly the service member that's been separated or retired for a little while longer, has been at a facility that is maybe closed, has went to a civilian emergency room due to something that was happened while on duty. We've got the background in doing state FOIAs, doing information requests to get those records to supplement any type of VA submission. And also important in that, and something that I've seen and we briefly mentioned, is assisting, this is for the separated service member, but also getting the kind of pre-decisional information of emails between providers, things like that. So those are all things that we have a background in. Again, we'd be happy to anyone who just wanted to do a call to say, look, I just need, I didn't get my OMPF, or I think it's missing. We can walk you through the steps on how to request it along with your medical records. The more complicated piece is again, the one where I'm missing something. And if I can give a personal testimony, this is about 4 years ago. I was on the other side of the coin. I was dealing with a FOIA, and it was a veteran Marine, but he had grown up in Jacksonville, North Carolina in the 50s. And he said, I need my records of living aboard Camp Lejeune because I've been drinking Camp Lejeune water since the day I was born. The hard part was he lived in Jacksonville. So other than just living in Jacksonville in general as being a strike against you, he actually never lived aboard Camp Lejeune, right? And he wasn't an active duty Marine aboard Camp Lejeune. He subsequently went in the Marine Corps. So we went through the process of going to Camp Lejeune and saying, hey, I've got the name of the street, but go and give me 123 Smith Street. Hey, that's not aboard Camp Lejeune. It never was. It's out in town. But going through the process of, in that example, okay, I need the the deed, I need the rental history on this address, aboard Had Not Point, or, whatever French Creek or Midway Terrace, aboard Lejeune, to get this information. When I lived in Hawaii on base in Kaneohe, it was about chlorodyne in the soil. Hey, my address was 1795 Lawrence Road. I need to get, I lived there between 2009 and 2015. But for the guy that lived there from 1980 to 1985, I need to get my family's lease record from 1980 to 1985. That's all things that we can leverage and we have experience with. Now, with the VA reopening, we have some experience there. However, I think that would be best, for Lance to address, or, for us to partner with others that have more experience in that realm. But go ahead, Lance, sir.
Yeah, and I would say I'm out of my depths on that one. I have personal experience, doing it myself and helping my wife through her 8-year-long appeal. But I wouldn't be able to confidently say that, I have a lot of experience in that VA piece.
But if I can give you an example, correct me if I'm wrong, but my experience in going to the VA courts, PTS. PTS can be established through a service connection of a diagnosed medical record or something in your medical record. So in theory, okay, we just do the request under MHS Genesis and it's in your medical record. If it's not in your medical record, okay, we need to find who your provider was. How do we find who your provider was? Okay, it's in your records, maybe it's not. How do we go about doing that? We go and we do FOIAs, we do Privacy Act requests to find out who this person was, to get their notes, to possibly get emails to other providers. Okay, maybe that's not there. That PTS can be established through letters from service members that you've been with. Okay, I wish I was, still tight and did reunions with guys that I served with or served with overseas. Some guys I am, some guys I'm not. What we can do, we can go through, we can FOIA command chronologies, we can FOIA different rosters, we can gain access to names, we can cross-reference that, in which we can get you that information. So that's all ways that with our skills, with your knowledge base, to get that information to help supplement, and then to get to the point where we can give you the evidence, you have the evidence that you need to ultimately go to BCNR or BCMR or to go to the VA. For those that are familiar, maybe you are, maybe you are not, we have background in something called combat-related special compensation. That is for service members generally who have been wounded in combat, both physically or psychologically. And that's supplemental payments above a medical retirement, medical separation, or the VA. We can assist with CURSIC, and that is, again, through things like letters, through diagnoses. So the idea is that we at Rights to Records can equip you with the information that you need to go to a plenary board, through the FOIA, through the Privacy Act, through other records access, and then with our wraparound services, our secondary services, get you to that point. So if that, Jim, if that answers the question, or Lance, if you got anything else to add.
Yeah, nothing on my end.
No, Jimmy and Lance, thank you. I mean, it more than answers the question. Great information to have. One thing that you touched on there at the end, and this is kind of a side note, I really like that you pointed out that there's that category of combat special pay too, right? Because another thing on top of, the difficulty, it seems insurmountable if you've been separated for a while to go track down your records. And I love that you touched on that we can FOIA command chronologies and all these things. It is in what might seem insurmountable to an individual that's looking back trying to do that. It's like, hey, with the right resources, it's actually not that difficult. But also some individuals struggle with that. I don't know what you call almost the guilt of I don't rate a disability compensation. I'm still physically good. And it's like, no, the VA rating is based on, okay, you lost this percentage. And there is a separate category for individuals who were hurt in combat like that, right? So it's not necessarily, so anyways, that's kind of just getting past that part of it, deciding to file a claim, and then, okay, I decided to file a claim. How do I get through this administrative records? And you guys offer a lot there. So it was really good to hear you kind of walk through that. It is approaching 9 o'clock. So if anybody's got to drop, totally understand. I do have a couple more discussion points myself, but I don't like to monopolize the conversation. So while we offer the opportunity for anyone to drop, does anybody else have any questions or discussion points for Lance and Jimmy? And then I got a couple just other quick discussion points. Okay.
I actually have to step off, Jim.
Okay, Charlie.
But it was really informative. I'm glad I actually, listened and attended this. And I think this can be, a quite helpful service to quite a few service members with varying degrees of issues. So good luck to you guys. And I hope to talk to you sometime in the future.
Thanks, Charlie.
Great. Thanks, Charlie.
Charlie, real quick, thanks for hopping on. And again, the one part of this that I always like to emphasize is this is not just for those of us that are on a call, and you're bringing in a totally different network. You've been out for a little bit longer, the Army network. So again, this will be on YouTube. Connect with Lance, connect with Jimmy, and anybody else that that might benefit.
I've already got a list. That I'm going to be sending this on to. So
wonderful.
And that network spreads wide. So
yeah,
that certainly will be doing that. Thank you.
Thanks, Charlie.
All right,
have a good night, go Bills.
Hey, I have to jump too. So thanks everyone. Just to drive home what Jim was just saying though, I also agree with Charlie in that this is definitely a great resource to have. And like Lance pointed out as we were listening to his story, this is ordinarily aimed at transitioning service members. We don't know the story behind their transition. It could be voluntary, it could be involuntary. So this is definitely a good resource because it's just something that people need. So I'm very glad that I attended as well. And I'll definitely be getting the word out.
Thanks, Charmaine.
Thanks, Charmaine.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks, Charmaine, and a fellow veteran entrepreneur. So always good to have you on. Thank you. Okay, so just a few more individuals hanging out. So, Jimmy and Lance, a couple of things that I just wanted to mention, one, the idea that businesses can utilize that's particularly interesting to me, right? Because we're obviously, you guys know, in the government contracting space. And I'd love, to also know as we get further down the nonprofit road, if there's opportunities to gain information that might be useful there, like how do we get onto bases and things like that? And what are the discussions around which entities are allowed to participate in TRS and that? But, we'll dive into that at a different time. I'll reach out to you guys on that. But one of the other things that you guys back on your why choose us slide, the most captivating, the most impactful part of that, I think, was one, you guys both shared personal stories that, you've been on, not only have you participated in service, this, type of discipline and practice, but you've also had to utilize it based on your different stories. And with what we're building here with this and going into Project Strive that's exactly what we want, because these are the kind of things that sometimes are difficult for individuals to embark on, and then to even share your personal story. But you said on your slide, we've been in the fight. Now we're fighting for you. We know the language, the culture, and you have that personal experience. So, just as a personal note and a business note, I think that's going to be one of the most impactful things for you, and why I'm excited to share your information with our entire network, right? Because now it's not just I'm reaching out to some random and asking them and disclosing all my personal information, but hey, as a fellow service member, this is someone who's dealt with this. You can feel both of your passion when you talk about it, that, you went through this, you're either going through it now. So just as a note to you guys, I can feel your passion. I love that. And I think that's going to be, a really important part of that. And we want to keep you in this network because you guys have that military connection in the background and the personal experience. So we do the same thing at IDP. We sell that like, hey, we've been in the fight. We're all former financial managers, former Marines, and that really works for us. So, I think that's going to work for you guys. And I appreciate that aspect of what you guys are doing and what you're offering. We're definitely going to post this up soon. You guys will see LinkedIn. We'll release a review, and then it'll go up on the YouTube page. For everybody that's participating, like we've said already, please, pass the word. I think this is a great subject and going to be real useful for some individuals. We've got a pretty big distro list, so we'll follow up, let everybody know to go out and watch it in case they missed it. But it's going to be that individual that's not on the distro list that somebody reaches out to that's going to reach out to you guys and really benefit from that. So appreciate you guys being on, taking the time out of your evening. early evening for you, Lance, but
Yeah.
and look forward to follow-up conversations with you guys and having you guys back on in a few months when we recycle everything and we get Project Strive up and running.